Hi, I'm Bonnie Kimpke. Welcome to my studio and welcome to Quilting on a Thread. This is episode 6 of my quilt journey, and what I had intended to do was be filming myself and have you watch me in various stages of attaching my binding to my quilt body. But to tell you the truth, I got so involved and I forgot to do it. I just love binding my quilt because I'm so excited. The quilt is almost done. So I'm going to reposition and show you a mock-up, much like I did when I demonstrated rolling up the body of my quilt. So I'm going to show you a mock-up, and then I'm going to show you some actual work on the quilt itself. So let me rearrange my video equipment. I'll be right back. So this orange material is going to be my mock-up. And that's going to be what I pretend to be my quilt body. And this is my binding. And there's so many different ways to make binding that I'm really not going to discuss how to make binding, other than to say I'm using a 2.5-inch binding. And I folded it and pressed it all the way down, from one end to the other, and rolled it up. I also have created this 45 here at the start of my binding and pressed that closed. So that creates a little pocket. That's going to come in to play later on. I do like to start at the corner, at the lower corner of my quilt, but it's not necessary. You could start in if you want. But I tend to like to start here at the corner. And I'll just line that up, and I sit down along my sewing machine and I begin sewing, but I don't start here at the corner because I want that pocket. That's for later. So I start sewing about 2 inches in, 2 inches in from my pocket where I've created that pocket, and I sew my 1/4 inch seam all the way down till I get to the end of the quilt body, and I leave a 1/4 inch unsewn on this side. So then I fold this 45, kind of finger press that in place, and then fold this back down so that it's down over that edge. Then I'll turn and begin sewing. What this does is that creates a little pocket, and we're going to see that pocket, where that pocket comes into play, when I show you some stuff here on the actual quilt. So I go all the way around with that. Let me grab the end of this, and I go all the way around the quilt, and I get to the end of where I've been sewing. And I do the same 1/4 inch and all that. But then I have this raw edge to bury. So I fold this over and find out where my pocket is, go in about 1 inch from that, trim the excess, open this pocket up, slip that in, put it in that little envelope that has been created, and then seam. And so that creates a completely enclosed binding all the way around my quilt body. So this is my quilt body that's been sewn on front and pinned on front, and this is a 1/4 inch all the way around on the front of it. But if you see around the back, it's much more generous. Well, I'm going to open this one up for you. So let me take out a couple of pins. Because I want you to see that little pocket that was created with this, this situation we created when we were sewing around, and I demonstrated that on my mock-up. So I created this little pocket. So when I fold this over, it creates its own self-mitering little area. So then I can do that all the way around. And I come in and I pin these. And the reason why I pin from the front is this way, if I decide that I want to sew this by machine, because I'm going to let this rest overnight, and if I decided I want to sew this by machine, all I have to do is sew this along just off of the front binding, and I'm going to grab that last, the back binding for certain, because I've got a generous back end of my binding. And I have always done my quilt bodies this way. It's just so easy. I can choose to do this by hand, or I can do it by machine. So if I were to do it by machine, I would sew just outside of the binding, and it's going to grab the binding in back because there's such a generous portion on the back. And it doesn't look at all bad that it's more generous on the back. So there you have it. That's my quilt. And the next time you see this quilt, she'll be completely done. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, and hope to see you again here on Quilting on a Thread. Bye-bye.